What is going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today we're going to be looking at the Adidas Dropset Trainers. So 4 pros that I have with this model is that overall the toe box and midfoot construction in the shoe are fairly wide. So if you have a neutral foot width, I think you're going to find this model to be plenty comfortable, especially for really splaying those toes. And overall, I like the width that Adidas used in this model. Not every Adidas model has a good width to it, and a lot of shoes do run a bit more narrow. So to have them implement a slightly wider construction in the shoe is really awesome, I think, for lifting and cross training. The second pro that I have with this model is the upper construction overall breathes really well, but is also pretty dang durable. So we have a lot of strategic layering throughout the upper in the shoe. So whether you're tackling some casual CrossFit workouts or cross training in your outdoors, tackling more athletic focused work, I think the upper in this model should be plenty durable for your training needs. So if you're dragging the toes, etc., I don't think you're gonna have a lot of scuffing on this model, at least right away. The third pro that I have with the shoe is that it's a really good model for recreational lifting. So we have a dual density midsole in this model, which basically means that the forefoot is a bit more responsive while the midfoot and heel are a bit more stable. So if you're somebody who wants a shoe that you can do some plyos in, some HIIT training in, but then also train pretty heavy in, this is a pretty good model for tackling those asks. I have trained up to 455 pounds on a trap bar deadlift with this shoe, and I haven't noticed any glaring compression issues. So I think most folks will enjoy the stability that they get with the Dropset Trainers. The fourth pro with this model is that with the outsole construction and how just the overall shoe is built, I think this is a pretty good shoe for tackling outdoor workouts and just different training contexts. So if you're somebody who wants a shoe for a little bit of everything, I think the Dropset Trainers do a pretty good job at tackling those tasks, especially for my more athletic focused athletes and lifters out there who want a shoe for training indoors, outdoors, and they don't have to worry about like the outsole gripping properly, etc. So across the board, I'm a fan of the Dropset Trainers. I think Adidas did a really cool thing with this model, and I'm super stoked to see how they innovate the shoe line as they grow. But now let's talk about a couple of cons I have with this shoe. So 2 potential cons I could see folks having with this model is number 1, the heel is a bit narrow and the boot comes up a little bit. So what I would say is to just hedge your bets and wear longer socks when you're breaking these in. They take about like a week to 2 weeks to break in, but I don't want you to have blistering up here due to the boot coming up and in a little bit. So overall, I haven't noticed any issues with that, but when I did put these initially on with some no-show socks, I noticed a little bit of friction, so I was like, I'm not blistering up today. So I put on longer socks, didn't have any issues, but definitely be conscious of breaking these in, especially with your sock choice. The second thing with this model that I could see as a drawback for some folks is that if you're buying these for tackling like more serious CrossFit workouts, you might be a little bit limited in regard to some of the more niche construction features that come with the shoe. So as opposed to like most CrossFit shoes that have an additional midfoot outsole wrap here to assist with rope climbs, this shoe has like more of a plastic layering, which I think is great for durability, but it's not going to provide you with the most grip. So that being said, this shoe does lack some niche construction features for CrossFit style workouts. However, I think for most folks, and I mentioned this earlier, that I think if you're more of like a casual CrossFitter or just somebody who does casual classes here and there, this model will work. Just note that it's not going to be like the end all be all when it comes to like the best CrossFit shoe on the market. But overall, those are my 2 cons and potential drawbacks with the Dropset Trainers. I have been subtly impressed with the shoe thus far, but now let's talk about the performance. So when it comes to the performance of the Adidas Dropset Trainers, I'm going to break this section to a few different parts. We'll talk about lifting, more versatile training, shorter runs, and then daily wear. So when it comes to lifting, I mentioned this in the pros, but I think most lifters and athletes should be safe with the overall stability that comes along with the shoe's dual density midsole. So working up to 455 pounds of trap bar deads, I didn't notice a ton of stability issues in this model whatsoever. So I do think for most folks, you should be plenty stable in this model. With that forefoot midsole construction that is a bit more versatile, you also get a nice comfortable ride when you're doing things like walking lunges and you're still trying to find stability with being a bit more dynamic in your movement. So I do like this model overall for lifting. Might not be the best model for like deadlifts and stuff because we do have a slightly higher stack height back here in the midfoot and heel, but from a just general recreational lifting standpoint, this model does really well. When it comes to more versatile training, I really like the shoe, and that's for 2 key reasons. Number 1, I think the outsole provides a nice level of traction in a variety of settings. Not every cross-training shoe works good, for example, on a track and then indoors. This shoe is one of those shoes that can kind of walk in both those worlds, and perform really well. And the second reason why I like this model for versatile training is that overall, with the upper construction and the blend of the midsole, I think you get a nice wide range of activities you can attack in the shoe where it's going to excel. So whether you're tackling classes, plyos, or hit, the shoe should be a pretty good model for tackling all of those needs and performing pretty well across the board. Now, when it comes to shorter runs and daily wear, this model will work for shorter runs. I would say probably cap your running to like 1 mile, maybe 2 at most in the shoe, because we do have a slightly more stable outsole and midsole. In this model, it may not be the most comfortable ride, but if you're tackling really short runs, sprint work, etc., the shoe should fit the bill plenty fine. And then when it comes to daily wear, this model is fairly comfortable. However, like with most cross-training shoes, especially ones that cost $120 plus, if you only wear these for your training settings, you'll get more out of them, but you can definitely wear them on a daily wear basis and they're pretty comfortable. They do have a pretty high level of stability though, so they may not be the most comfortable ride for standing all day or if you're wearing them to work, but for a general daily wear and daily driver, these will work just fine. So now let's answer the question, is the Adidas Dropset Trainers worth it? I think if you're a recreational lifter and you want a shoe for a little bit of everything that you can wear indoors and outdoors, then this model is worth it. They provide plenty of stability, I think, for the recreational lifter, and they're dynamic for my more athletic focused folks out there. So that all being said, this isn't gonna be the best model for like niche CrossFit training. However, for somebody who wants a shoe for tackling a little bit of everything, I do like the Dropset Trainers. So when it comes to sizing and fit in the Adidas Dropset Trainers, you should be safe going true to size. I mentioned earlier that the midfoot and forefoot are built to be a bit wider in nature. So if you have a neutral foot width, this model should feel really comfortable for you, and their length fits true. But as mentioned before, when breaking these in, I would say wear longer socks just to prevent any potential friction and blistering on your Achilles. For the Adidas Dropset Trainers, you can expect to pay $130 USD. Like compared to other top cross-training shoes on the market, this price point is fairly similar, so you can't really say like they're outwardly expensive. It would have been cool if they were less, but overall, I do think that for a first pass, this model is worth that price point, especially if you're more of like that athletic / versatile lifter and athlete. So when it comes to the heel to toe drop, weight, and insole in this model, for my size 10 shoe here, we have a weight of 12.9 ounces. The heel to toe drop in this model is actually TBD. I reached out to Adidas customer support and they said they don't have a formal heel to toe drop in this shoe. And then when it comes to the insole in this model does remove. So if you do have your own custom orthotics, you should be plenty fine putting them into this model because there is a fair amount of volume throughout the toe box and midfoot in this shoe. All right, so now let's go over the construction of the Adidas Dropset Trainers. So up here on the toe, we have an extended outsole layer that wraps up. I like that it's made to be a little bit wider. It's going to give you more durability, especially when it comes to like dragging the toes in burpees and sprint work where you're going prone to sprint. We have a synthetic layer that wraps around the toe for additional durability. Then we have like this more breathable mesh throughout the entirety of the upper. As you can see, we have additional layering throughout the upper here on the medial and lateral side. And then we have this plastic layer that wraps up on the medial and lateral side of the midfoot. Once again, I do think this adds a little bit to stability and durability, but it's not the best for rope climbs because it is a slick plastic. You don't get a lot of grip out of it. But from a protective and durability standpoint, I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing for this shoe. We have a dual density midsole that goes throughout. So as you can see, we have the different colors here. This midsole up here is a bit more reactive and responsive, whereas the midsole back here is pretty stable, which is pretty good because we do have a slightly higher stack height back here on the heel. Looking at the outsole, we have a full rubber outsole, and as you can see, we have a lot of different traction and tread on this shoe. So up here in the forefoot and midfoot, we have these smaller ridges, and then back here on the heel, slightly thicker ridges. I think this feeds really well into helping this shoe perform in a variety of settings. Looking at the midfoot, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eyelets that run up. We also have these additional holes down here. So if you want to bring down your laces, I guess you technically could. Personally, I didn't really mess with that. I tried it once and was like, nah, I'm just gonna go with the traditional way of lacing. So overall, I do like the lacing system in the shoe, and we do have a slightly wider midfoot and forefoot. The heel, as mentioned in the cons, is a bit narrow, and you may have a little bit of friction here when breaking the shoe in, but overall, I think if you wear longer socks and you're conscious of that, you shouldn't have any issues there. We have a thicker tongue. The tongue doesn't really slide at all. We do have an external loop here to help lock that tongue in place. And then lastly, we have that removable insole. So if you want to put your own orthotics into the shoe, as I struggle to get the insole out, you certainly can. The shoe's volume is pretty good, so we do have a slightly higher instep in this model. So I do think this is a pretty good option too for folks who have their own orthotics. If you have any additional questions on this model, hit me in the comments below. And also, before we wrap this up, I do want to say too that I did miss that 50% of the upper in this model is made with recycled content, which I think is really cool. But again, guys, if you have any additional questions, hit me in the comments below. All right, guys, that wraps up my review of the Adidas Dropset Trainers. If you have any additional questions on this model, hit me in the comments below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, guys, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. P.S. We do have some acoustic panels coming in behind me. I'm gonna get some moss art commissioned by my friend who runs a small business in New York City. We're gonna have some That Fit Friend branding. So the studio is coming along, and I really do appreciate you guys for bearing with me. I will do a full tour of the studio once we get it all built out because I want you all to be in the know. But again, guys, I will see you in the next one. Thank you.